Coming at you from Bellingham, Washington. This is Two Nuts in the Sack. I'm Julie.
I'm Gavin. And do you believe in miracles?
Yes, I do. But on this day in history, February 22nd, 1980, the entire United States did too. Watching the Olympic hockey final broadcast live from Lake Placid, New York, as the underdog U.S. hockey team emerged victorious over the undefeated Soviet team. The day USA Hockey did the impossible. The day that touched so many people.
That's right, because this Soviet team was the best of the best in the world. Going back to 1964, when they took gold over Sweden, and then in 1968, they took gold over Czechoslovakia, and in 72, they beat us, the United States, and 76 marked another gold medal against Czechoslovakia. They went undefeated since 1968. They were a powerhouse, disciplined and skilled. The team lived and breathed hockey. They were the king of the Eastern Bloc hockey, whom remained dominant since the inception of the event in 1924. But as the 1980 Olympic Games approached, the Amateur Hockey Association, the AHA, I'm going to continue to refer to them as the AHA because I don't want any flubs to occur. They reached out to coach Herb Brooks, a motivated hockey player. He was selected for the 1960 Olympic team, but was the last player of the team to be cut. And after the U.S. team won gold in 1960, he went to the coach, then Jack Riley, and said, "Well, you must have made the right decision. You won." For Brooks, this was humbling, but did not stop him. And from 1960 to 1970, Brooks set a record for playing on a total of 8 U.S. national and Olympic teams, including his showing at the 64 and the 68 Olympic squads. After hanging up his skates, he became a coach, leading his alma mater, the Minnesota Golden Gophers, to 3 NCAA championship titles in 74, 76, and 79. His overall record, 175 wins, 101 losses, and 20 ties. So with all of this success under his belt, he was the outstanding choice of the AHA for the head coach of the 1980 U.S. Olympic team. But he wanted to do it his own way. He handpicked his team without AHA approval. He rewrote his entire playbook. He developed a hybrid of the rugged bruiser style North American style and the fast-paced, creative, teamwork-based European style. He drove the point of endurance, stressing peak conditions for every player on the team, and in a manner fitting for even the most authoritarian Soviet coach would approve of. He ran his group of boys an average of the age of 22, so they were really just boys, most of them collegiate athletes, but not yet professional.
They were college players, right?
Right. like their average age 22.
Just babies.
But he led them to victory because each of the players that he chose were the right place in the right time for his team to win victory. And that's exactly what happened. And after rigorous training, the team was ready. They were conditioned such that they could face God himself on the ice. For many Americans, though, they were about to face the devil, the USSR, the CCP, the communist scourge that was in the midst of a political power play for world domination. This simple game would mean, for many, the turning point in the ongoing Cold War between the Soviet Union and the United States of America. Every member of the team was crucial to the victory because of the rigorous team building espoused by Coach Brooks, but there were some standouts among the group. The first, Buzz Schneider, the only previous American to compete at the Olympic level, and scored the first U.S. goal responding to the Soviets' very first goal of the game. He had a high shot over the shoulder of Vladislav Tretiak. Forgive me for my pronunciation. The
A for
Soviet,
effort.
Soviet goalie. Thank you. Which tied the game in the first period, as well as gained a little bit of hope for a U.S. victory. The Soviets answered back almost immediately, with Sergei Makarov upping the lead to 2-1. But then, with seconds remaining, Ken Morrow shot the puck down the ice toward the goal, where Mark Johnson picked up the puck and drove it into the Soviet goal, with just a single second of the first period remaining, and tied the game at 2-2. At the start of the second period, the Soviets replaced the veteran goalie, Tretiak, who had performed very well in the previous 2 Olympics. So he'd been around for at least 8 years, and they knew that he was a good goalie. But they replaced him with Vladimir Mishkin. So with a new goalie at the net, good God.
Keep going.
Please forgive me. With a new goalie at the net, the Russians kicked into high gear. They dominated the second period. The puck rarely got out of the American side, and it was an onslaught. 12 shots on goal in total for the Russians, with the counterpart of a paltry 2 shots on goal by the Americans. Alexander Maltsev scored a goal, slipping through the almost infallible goaltending of Jim Craig, were it not for his incredible goaltending and amazing saves, the U.S. would have lost the game, and we wouldn't even be talking about the miracle on ice. He is one to be remembered, Jim Craig. I think he's still alive, and that seemed like an in memoriam thing. But yeah. He's still alive, and if you go by the stats, he probably sells real estate. As the puck was dropped, let's go back to our story. As the puck was dropped at the beginning of the third period, the score was 3-2 in favor of the USSR.
Back in the USSR. I couldn't resist.
I know. So, because the USSR is, they were beating us horribly.
Wherever you are.
I mean, it was 3-2, so how horribly is that? I mean, in hockey, it's kind of a bigger number than most sports, but okay. All right, back to the story.
Back to the story.
As the puck was dropped at the beginning of the third period, the score 3-2 in favor of the USSR.
I won't break into song again, I promise.
Thanks for that, and give me a small cough break. Sorry if you all heard that. I know you did, but I'm sorry. But in past years, this is where the Russians would have flexed hard and their opponent would have gassed out from the fight. But because of Brooks' rigorous training regiment, the U.S. still had a dog in the fight. And 9 minutes into that third period, Johnson was able to shove another goal this time a wild shot by David Silk to make the game 3-3. With under 2 minutes later, the captain, Mike Arruzione, and many people would probably say Mike Erugiani, but it's actually Italian, and his last name means eruption. And that is exactly what happened. He shot a 25-foot wrist shot into the goal, and the crowd erupted because for the first time in the game, the Americans were no longer coming from behind, but they actually shot ahead of the Soviets. And so, much as his name describes, because the Italian word for eruption is eruzione.
That's a mouthful.
It certainly is. But much to his namesake, the score was now 4-3. The crowd erupted. Unfortunately, there was 10 minutes left to play. But this is where our old friend comes back to save the day. And that name was Jim Craig. Jim Craig was able to hold off a number of shots from the Russians, able to block off and hold the victory for the United States team. So at the end of it, we won 4-3.
Wow.
And as the entire crowd counted down to the final seconds of the game, Al Michaels shouted that famous phrase that we put up at the beginning of the podcast. Do you believe in miracles? I wish I could have Al Michaels do it, but we don't have that technology yet. So I just have to sort of fill in.
You're good at it.
Well, yeah. So, do you believe in miracles? Yes! As the game ended. So the US then pushed on because ultimately this game, as monumental as it was only the first in a round decided by 4 people. So it's basically they got to the final 4 of the US hockey medal round. And so they still had another game to play, which was against Finland. But with all sorts of gas and kerosene and Everclear and anything flammable, they destroyed Team Finland and won the gold.
Woo!
In 1980. Your enthusiasm is overwhelming.
Woohoo!
That's better.
Can you feel that, baby?
So, as happy as we were about the win against Finland and us getting the gold, it was so much more important that we beat the Soviet Union. The powerhouse, the dynamo, the undefeatable foe that we drew together as a country with just a bunch of young kids and actually pulled out a victory which would resound as a victory against the Soviet Union and possibly a closer to the Cold War. Ultimately, that wasn't the case, but a lot of people thought that this gives us hope. We can beat those commie bastards. I went Boston on that, I'm sorry. But anytime I think of that, all I can hear is commie bastards. I don't know. Where are you at on this?
I'm just listening.
Well, thanks for that. I love just sort of expounding to myself. But I'm glad that you're listening.
You're welcome.
But seriously, it was not just a victory for the team, but it was a victory for the United States. And if that ain't a kick in the sack, I don't know what is.
All right, this is Two Nuts in a Sack signing off.